Carefully. I'm not sure
Thank you.
this is how you're.
Well, that's fine. Thank you.
And then you can make simple modifications to it also. On the paper, if you convince the paper to sit in a certain shape, then it will change the whole thing. So most of what I'm doing now is still exploring the tension of the in the paper and how to create different surfaces.
You actually have a studio that you set up?
Okay.
You actually have a studio that you work out of now?
It's at home. I work at home. So my house is a studio, and my wife is nice enough to tolerate it.
Does your wife do any folding?
She does, but not mostly boxes and modular things. She's not creating her own things at the moment. She prefers working with concrete.
Sure, she's an artist as well?
Well, she just defended her dissertation in statistics a month ago.
Oh, wow.
So she doesn't have time for it now. But
Okay.
so, and then another thing that I would like to do is fold without folding so much. So unfolding things or sort of shaping them without sharp folds. And sometimes you can do things that move in that direction, but that's a long ways away still. Yeah, let's finish. And then, any questions you have?
Have you tried putting on some kind of surface and then trying to fold and then maybe doing half of the piece of paper with a different type of surface? See what it would cause?
Right. So sometimes I try. So some of these are combinations of different things. Right. So this part is folded in a different way than this part, but they're folded at the same time. So you have to be careful about how the different folds interact. Most of these are variants on how different sequences of pleats interact. So if you look carefully, what happens here? To start unfolding, I just unfold a pleat. This is a single pleat of paper. And then there's another pleat here. And then another pleat here, another pleat here, another pleat here, and so on. So that's all there is to it. So combinations of this, different sequences of pleats put together in different orders is what creates different surfaces. And then the rest is just learning how they work with each other. So learning the language, the different strokes you have at your disposal. It's not as obvious as with painting, but it restricts you in different ways, and so it's much more difficult to do certain things. But then also there's a different level of planning. It's not as natural to work.
Go ahead.
Sorry, when you say you plan, I mean, do you practice some of the folds to see how they interact beforehand, so that you have some, so that you're now you've conceptualized it?
I do sometimes make smaller things to see how they work. So this I made a smaller or simpler study piece for this that had fewer of these, just to make sure that's how it works. That's what's going to happen. Sometimes I can tell in advance that what will happen, but sometimes I'm not really sure. And I've thought about trying to predict it using mathematics and a computer program and simulation, but I don't know enough math, and no one I've talked to knows either. And Robert Lang is also a physicist, and he would know someone who knows it. He says it's impossible, so it's just a dream right now.
Where do you get your paper? All these beautiful papers.
So the paper, so the elephant hide right now is hard to find here. I just found a little stash in Boulder the other day, but that was luck. And I pretty much have to get it from Europe these days. But the more the Japanese papers or some of these art papers are easier to find in typical art stores and paper stores. There's a beautiful little store on Southern Avenue called Paper Studio.
Paper Studio.
And I get a lot of things there, just around the corner. So,
Is there a scale limitation that you're involved in? I mean, is there something that makes you think about, kind of how big you want to make them? I mean, is there some,
I'm trying to figure out how large I can go.
Right,
And
that's what-
copper is one way to do it.
Okay.
Because it remains sturdy. It's not just how large a sheet of paper you can get, it's also how sturdy it will be when it's done. Because paper, at this size already, it's a little bit floppy.
Right, loses
Right.
integrity.
I don't, this is the same thickness, weight of paper, and it's much stronger. With copper, that doesn't happen so soon. If I went much larger with copper, I'd need thicker copper, and I'd need tools. I folded a 5-foot square of 300 gram watercolor paper, and that works well. The result is about this big.
Oh, that's cool.
But I don't know how to go much larger than that, except by joining more pieces of paper.
Right.
It's also physically taxing at that point, because you have a piece of paper that you have to fold in half and so on, and make a grid 32 by 32. It's 5 foot to a side, so you're on the floor for a large number of hours. And that paper, if you fold it a lot, it breaks. So what I did with that one was wet it, and to create the grid and then to fold. And of course, in Arizona, that means you're spraying it with water every 5 minutes.
Constantly.
But you're also crawling around it. So there have been attempts, and people have folded large-scale figures. So Robert Lang has a couple of cranes on display in Indiana. I think it's in Indiana, that are life-size. Again, made from 5 or 6 foot squares. But people have made life-size dinosaurs as well. Working in teams.
Right.
Because if the paper stretches to the other end of the room, you need more than the person to fold it.
Can you give us an idea of the time it took you to do some of these?
So some of the smaller ones are sort of single-digit hours. Some of the larger ones take more. It takes a while. I don't usually make them in one sitting. If I know exactly what I'm doing and the paper is something I've worked with before, then it's faster because I know how it behaves. I know how roughly I can treat it, or how gentle I have to deal with it. But it's hard to say. I mean, so it depends on how detailed the structure is also. This is 64 by 64 little squares when you start. So you have to first put that grid in place. And then you have 64 times 4 grids to make, so.
Do you use a little tool to make the folds sharp?
No, usually I don't, because I find I have better control over what I do with my hands. But for some of the smaller things, I don't, my own things I don't typically make this small. But some of the smaller ones, it's useful to have tweezers.
Are you influenced at all by like basket makers or people in the fiber world?
I've been looking at their work. I have. It's hard to translate it because these are, as much as they look woven, they are not woven. They are made from a single piece of paper.
Right.
But I'm thinking about trying to replicate some of the shapes that I see. The structures, there's a whole community of people working in geometric organic, in what they call tessellations. They're basically repeated figures placed on a flat surface. So you have like a floor that's tiled by certain figures. And so you use the inside of the paper to make a figure, like pretty much like this. You could make from a single sheet of paper. You could make many of these flowers next to each other, really, because the edges of the original sheet are all pretty close to the outside, so they can be combined and made in multiples. And when you do that, then you can create different patterns and put them together in interesting ways. You could use that to then on top of that fold some of the bowls and plates and baskets that I'm making. So you could take it in that direction. I'm still thinking about putting things inside them. So like a still life for. But yeah, I have a website and a bunch of photographs there also.
Okay, we can take a look. Yeah.
People look at it, but it's also on the if you you have
on
the
the,
material.
on the panel, yeah. All right. Well, should we give Goran a round of applause? Thank you.
So this was this well-planned